The smell of burnt onions still makes my stomach turn. That day, it wasn't the soup that burned. It was my last bit of faith in my parents. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind that always felt heavy in my parents' house. The kitchen was small, the air thick with steam and criticism. My mother, Sandra, stood by the stove wearing her faded apron, the one that used to say, "Family is everything." She'd long since burned off the everything part. I was visiting with my 6-year-old son, Noah. He was small for his age, gentle, soft-spoken, too soft for my father's liking. "He's got your weak bones," Dad would grumble every time Noah tripped or cried. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. That afternoon, Mom had made chicken soup, her way of proving she still cared. The kind of meal that came with insults instead of salt. I set the table while Noah stood near the counter, holding a spoon too big for his little hand. He was helping, just like I used to try to. He dipped the spoon into the pot, proud and smiling. "Grandma, I can stir!" Mom shot him a glare sharp enough to slice air. "You'll spill it. Go sit down." But he didn't. Not immediately. Kids never do. The spoon slipped, soup splashed onto the counter, then onto the floor. A small mess, nothing more. But to my mother, it was a declaration of war. The pan crashed down before I could even move. A deafening clang. Noah screamed. I froze for half a second until I saw his tiny fingers pinned beneath the edge of the heavy metal pan. His hand trembled, soup dripping down his wrist, a welt forming instantly. "What are you doing?" I screamed, grabbing him and yanking his hand free. Mom didn't even flinch. She just straightened her apron and said, "He'll remember next time not to be careless. You should have taught him." Noah's cries echoed in the kitchen, bouncing off tile and cruelty. My father looked up from the couch where he'd been drinking and watching a rerun of some old game show. He took one glance at Noah's swollen fingers, then laughed. "Maybe he needed to toughen up," he said, shrugging. "That's what boys need, not hugs." I swear my vision blurred. "He's a child," I shouted. Dad grinned, took another sip, and muttered, "So were you. Look how you turned out." Noah's little body shook as he buried his face in my chest, his tears soaking through my shirt. I held him tighter, feeling that old helplessness claw its way back, the same helplessness I'd known growing up in that same kitchen. I wanted to leave right then, but I didn't have a car. My parents had insisted we visit for the weekend because it was my sister's birthday the next day. "Family tradition," Mom had said, like she ever cared about family. Noah's sobs turned to hiccups. His hand throbbed purple. I needed to get him ice. I opened the freezer, only to hear Mom behind me. "You always overreact," she said, her tone like venom in syrup. "You were the same, crying over every little thing. No wonder you're still alone." I turned to her, the ice tray trembling in my hand. "You hit my son." She tilted her head, mock innocence dripping from every word. "And? Maybe if you'd raised him right, I wouldn't have to." Dad laughed again from the couch. "She's got a point, Amber. You're too soft. Kids need fear, not comfort." I looked at both of them, the people who had raised me, and suddenly it all clicked. Every bruise, every insult, every time I was told to toughen up instead of being comforted. They hadn't changed. They never would. But I had. I knelt beside Noah, pressing ice gently against his swollen hand. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "It's okay, baby," I whispered. "I'm here. I won't let anyone hurt you again." Mom scoffed. "Oh, please, don't act like you're some hero now. You couldn't even survive without us. You're back under our roof, remember?" That sentence hit harder than she could ever imagine. She was right. We were staying with them temporarily. I'd lost my job 3 months ago, rent overdue, savings gone. I'd swallowed my pride for Noah's sake, hoping maybe, just maybe, they'd treat him better than they treated me. But I'd been wrong. Dead wrong. Noah looked up at me through tears, whispering, "Mommy, I want to go home." Those 5 words felt like a knife and a key all at once. I looked at my parents, their faces smug and comfortable in their cruelty. Then I looked at my son. Small, scared, and everything I ever wanted to protect. And I decided. We were leaving. Not just their house, their world. That night, after they'd gone to bed, I packed our bags silently. Every zipper felt like an exhale of pain. I slipped Noah's tiny hand into mine, wrapped his bandaged fingers carefully, and we stepped out into the cold night. The sky was black, but for the first time, it didn't feel empty. It felt like freedom waiting. I didn't know where we were going yet, just that it would be anywhere but there. And as the porch light flickered behind us, I made myself a promise. If they wanted Noah to toughen up, I'd show them what strength really looked like. The kind that didn't break children. It built them. The kind they'd never understand. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the broken blinds of the small motel room I'd found on the edge of town. The air smelled of mildew and stale coffee, but it was quiet. Blessedly quiet. Noah lay on the bed beside me, his little hand wrapped in gauze I'd bought from the pharmacy. His fingers twitched when he dreamed, a soft whimper escaping his lips. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror. My eyes were swollen, my hair matted, and my heart felt like a raw wound. I had left behind every belonging, every safety net, every connection, except the one that mattered most. Noah. I reached for my phone, 20 missed calls, all from Mom. The last voicemail was her voice, dripping with that cruel, sing-song tone she used when pretending to care. Amber, stop being dramatic. Bring the boy back. You know we didn't mean it. Accidents happen. Accidents. That's what they called smashing a child's fingers with a pan. That's what they'd called breaking my spirit, too. I deleted every voicemail and blocked her number. For the first time in years, silence felt sacred. Over the next few days, I found a part-time job cleaning rooms at that same motel. The manager, a soft-spoken man named Greg, didn't ask questions. He handed me a mop, a uniform, and said, "You look like you need a second chance." I worked until my hands ached, until my back screamed, but I didn't complain. Each dollar, each night of exhaustion was worth it, because it meant Noah and I were surviving on our own. At night, I'd tell him stories before bed. He'd curl up close, his little hand resting on my arm. "Mommy," he whispered one night. "Will Grandma and Grandpa come here?" I kissed his forehead. "Not unless I let them, and I won't." Weeks passed, and slowly our bruises, his on the outside, mine on the inside, began to fade. But the past had a way of finding cracks to crawl through. One evening, as I scrubbed the motel floor, I heard a voice behind me. A voice that made my stomach twist. "Still mopping up other people's messes, huh?" I turned. My sister Lindsay stood there, wearing the same smug grin she'd perfected as a teenager. "Mom sent me," she said, flipping her hair. "She's worried about you and the boy." "Tell her not to be." I kept cleaning. She scoffed. "You're always so dramatic. You know Dad didn't mean that laugh thing. He was just being old school. You really left because of that?" I looked up at her. "He laughed when Mom smashed Noah's hand." "He laughed, Lindsay. What part of that is old school?" Lindsay rolled her eyes. "You always twist everything. You're the family problem, Amber. Always have been." I stood, my knees shaking but my voice calm. "Then stay out of the problem's life." Before she could say another word, Greg appeared at the counter. "Everything okay here, Amber?" Lindsay looked him up and down, smirked, and said, "Wow, so this is your life now? Cleaning motels and flirting with janitors? Pathetic." Greg's expression didn't change, but I saw something shift in his eyes. Empathy, maybe, or anger for me. He put a hand gently on my shoulder and said, "You don't have to take that." Lindsay laughed. "She always has to take it. That's what she's good at." And with that, she left, her perfume lingering like poison. That night, I cried in the shower, not because of her words, but because I'd finally realized they no longer broke me. They disgusted me. Days turned to weeks again. Greg helped me find a small apartment nearby, nothing fancy, but it had clean walls and a lock that worked, both upgrades from my parents' home. Noah started smiling more, his laughter no longer followed by flinches. Still, something inside me wouldn't rest, because I knew my parents hadn't changed. They were still sitting in that same house, blaming me, twisting the story, maybe even convincing Lindsay I'd gone crazy again. They'd always taught me pain, but never consequence. Until now. Late one night, after Noah had fallen asleep, I found an old box in my bag, the one that had survived the move. Inside was a flash drive. I remembered it instantly. My father used it to store family photos, tax forms, and a folder labeled work projects. But I'd always known what work projects meant. Dad was an independent contractor who took shortcuts, used fake safety reports, and filed false invoices under other employees' names. He bragged about it once after drinking too much, said, "The government owes me more than I owe it." And Mom? She'd helped him hide every trace. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. It was all still there. Years of falsified records, receipts, and fraudulent forms tied directly to their names. My heart pounded. I didn't need to leak it. I didn't need to call the cops. I just needed to make sure it landed exactly where it would hurt most, in the inbox of the people Dad worked for. A simple email, anonymous. No explanation, no threats. Just truth. When I hit send, I didn't feel vengeful. I felt clean. 3 days later, the news broke. Local contractor under investigation for fraudulent bidding scandal. Their faces flashed on the local TV segment, Mom's voice trembling as she tried to defend them. "We're being framed!" The irony nearly made me laugh, but I didn't. I just looked at Noah coloring at the kitchen table, sunlight touching his healed hand, and said quietly, "See, sweetheart, justice doesn't always have to shout." Greg knocked that afternoon, holding 2 milkshakes. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. Better than okay. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving despite them. I was surviving without them. And they were finally learning what helplessness felt like. 2 months passed before I saw their faces again. 2 months of quiet mornings, steady work, and laughter that didn't have to tiptoe around cruelty. Noah's hand had healed. Only a faint scar remained, one I kissed every night before bed as if erasing what they'd done. But peace doesn't erase memory. It just makes it easier to face it. The call came from my sister. I ignored it at first. Then she texted, "They're losing everything. They need help." I sat staring at the message for a long time. The version of me that used to tremble would have rushed over, desperate, to fix things. But the woman I'd become, the mother I'd become, knew better. Still, curiosity can be cruel. I drove there the next morning, the same house, the same cracked porch, the same lifeless flowers by the steps. But the air felt different, desperate, hollow, smaller somehow. When I stepped inside, the smell hit first. Cigarette smoke, burnt food, stale whiskey. My father sat in his recliner, the one he used to laugh from, now surrounded by empty bottles and unopened mail. My mother was at the table, her hands trembling as she stared at a stack of papers, legal notices, foreclosure letters, and debt claims. She looked up. For the first time in my life, she looked old, not by age, but by consequence. "Amber!" she started, her voice cracking. "You came." I didn't move. "I heard you needed help." Dad let out a bitter laugh that broke halfway. "Help? After what you did?" "I didn't do anything," I said calmly. "You did." He tried to stand but couldn't, his leg in a brace, his eyes sunken. "You think you're better than us now? You and that kid?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Better? No. Just free." Mom's lip trembled. "We're going to lose the house." I walked to the window, sunlight spilling in across the walls that had once heard my screams. Maybe that's what happens when you build a home on fear. Her voice rose, desperate now. "We're still your parents, Amber." That word, parents, hit me like ash in my throat. "No," I said softly. "You were my captors. You raised me in a house where pain was love and cruelty was tradition. You laughed at my son's suffering. You lost me long before the house ever burned." Dad's jaw tightened. You think you can survive without us forever? Life will chew you up. I smiled faintly. It already did. You were the first teeth. For the first time, silence. No insults, no laughter. Just silence. Thick and raw. I looked around that house, the one that had been both grave and prison, and felt nothing. No hate, no nostalgia. Just release. I didn't come to forgive you, I said finally. I came to show you what strength looks like, the kind you never had the courage to teach me. Mom's eyes filled with tears she'd never allowed herself before. Amber, please! But I was already walking toward the door. Outside, the sky was the same pale gray it had always been, but it didn't feel suffocating anymore. It felt like air. Noah was waiting in the car, holding his favorite stuffed fox. When he saw me, his smile lit up the world. Mommy, are we going home now? I nodded. Yeah, baby, we're going home. As I started the car, I glanced once more at the house through the mirror. 2 small figures framed in the doorway, watching me leave. The same way they'd once watched me beg. Only this time, I didn't look away, because they weren't the story anymore. We were. And as Noah sang softly in the back seat, his voice full of innocence they could never touch again, I finally felt what I'd been chasing all my life. Not revenge. Peace. The kind that doesn't scream. It simply exists. And in that quiet, I realized something my parents would never understand. You can't toughen a child by breaking them. You only teach them how to survive without you. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.